So, like we did last time, we're just gonna do white and one color. Choose something. Dang it, that's black. Well, I guess black wins. So I'm gonna use white and black. But you guys use whatever you please in terms of the color other than white. Just make sure that you choose one of your darker colors, because if you were to do this, say with yellow ochre, you wouldn't be able to get a very full value range. So with me going with the black, now I'll have everything I could possibly want. They say that the average person can distinguish 40 different values. So imagine that there are 40 shades between white and black, and that's great. All I want you guys to come up with are 10. Okay, if you can show me 10 distinct steps of value in your painting, I'll be happy with that. Okay, so just got one of these canvas panels. They're not the greatest thing in the world to paint on, but they do come economical. So our first decision that we talked about last time was what? The orientation, exactly. So I've selected, you see this group of 4 trees straight ahead of me. Now, they're not the most exciting trees. Like, these are actually really cool looking, but I figured we weren't going to be in the shade for long over by the building. So what I want you to do is select a tree or group of trees to paint, and as you look at the scene there that I've got, you'll see that strong shadows, strong directional light. Like, the last thing you'd want to do would be to paint with the sun directly behind you or coming directly towards you, or towards the trees that you select, because then everything's either all light or it's all in shadow. So what I'm trying to get is a situation where I've got light and shadow coming across the forms, and you'll paint this essentially just like you did your single object in class. Okay? All right, so I've got a nice jug of water here. I will try to not knock this one off like I almost did in the demo. How many of you laughed? I was not so amused, but you know, that's okay. So, when you paint a landscape, I think a lot of people, we talked about talent breeding laziness earlier. I think a lot of people get really lazy because they say, oh, it's a tree, so I can just really make this light. I'm doing a tree, right? Okay, you know, that's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? Okay, but a lot of people do that, and it's because you learned to make a tree like this when you were how old? What? Kindergarten. That's good. So still life, landscape. What else might we paint in this class?
Abstract? Portrait.
Portraits, okay? So if I'm painting a portrait, what's the most important thing about it? The face, and that it... What's that? Looks like not just a face, but that face, the person you're painting. So the way I want you to think about the landscape is not that you're painting a tree, because if you paint a tree, then you'll get that 3 we talked about, but painting that specific tree. Okay, imagine that you're painting a portrait of a tree as opposed to a just generic tree. All right, so I'm going to start with the brown brush like I did the other day. And I'm going to thin the paint out a lot, like almost like I'm doing a watercolor to start with. We talked a little bit about fat over lean the other day, where I was saying you make an oil painting and you want it to be progressively thicker as you go along. So got kind of clumps of tree. It's coming down. So see, I'm trying to get really specific with the overall shape of it. And then we've got some great shadows cast off these guys. Like so. There's a light peeking through there. And when you look at that group of trees ahead of me, it's basically, you know, in shadow over here on the left, and then far more light over here on the right. So I'm going to take my wide brush, my flat, and I'm just going to load up with some paint here to start with. So I'm looking for those deepest shadows. In the tree. And you guys can tell how thin I'm putting this on? Yes? Okay. Real thin over here. It kind of comes up higher and then it dips down a little bit lower. And it gets higher again. Hello! 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 Okay, I know I'm in trouble. I didn't turn my phone off. Isn't that fitting that it be my phone that go off first? So I'm gonna come in. And I'm gonna get some of that shadow on the ground. I'm gonna let a little bit of the light peek through. I guarantee you that was my youngest son, because he has the most impeccable timing. He can always tell when I'm doing something or eating dinner or lunch or what have you, and that's always when he calls. Okay, so I've got those three trunks that I can see. I've got light and shadow worked into the tree. I haven't really done anything with the ground plane except for these shadows down here. But that already reads, doesn't it? Can you tell where I'm painting, where I'm looking? Okay, so real quick, I mean, that would be enough of a sketch to almost go back to my studio and say, okay, I could build on this. I'm having all kinds of trouble with water. So it's kind of in a mass of grays because I've put it on so thin. I'm going to go back in now with the black and not thin it out quite so much, and start to reinforce some of what's going on. You know, I really want that trunk strong there. Got the second one here, this one back a little bit. Now see, it's really important that when you're painting a landscape and you have multiple trees, that you don't allow everything to line up at the bottom. You see how these two are close to one another, but then look how much higher this trunk where it meets the ground is. That goes a long way towards making space. All right, so you want to make space. I'm looking to see where else can I see some of the tree trunks. A little bit coming through in here. So there's kind of a falling down of one there. Now I'm going to go in. This is dangerous. I'm going to go in and start to deepen the shadows. And in deepening the shadows, I can go ahead and start to have some brush strokes that look a little more like I'm describing leaves, as opposed to a simple cylinder or vase or whatever kind of object you guys chose to work with. So have that going on. But as I'm putting these brush strokes in and making things darker, I'm also kind of trying to keep my value pattern under control. Great tree limb that comes through there. Doing that, I'm starting to kind of show that stronger light in here a little bit more. I think I want the light on the tree to be more pronounced than, say, the light on the ground. So I'm going to come in again and reinforce my shadows. Nice thing about doing a landscape, you know, it really encourages you to kind of play fast and loose with it. You know, get the nice strong brush strokes. Now I want to come in with the grass that I see back behind the trees, and in doing that I'm going to just mix a little bit of white with my black. So if I do that, and now I start coming in with the brush strokes for the ground plane, that may be a little dark. Never feel like you're stuck with anything you start with. Put something down, it's a little dark, go ahead and adjust it like that. Now while I'm on the ground plane here, what can you tell me about my brush strokes? Don't everybody answer at once, that only confuses.
They're mostly horizontal?
They're mostly horizontal because I'm trying to touch that plane. So I'm trying to keep these strokes mostly horizontal, come in with a couple of lights here. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. And now I want to go just a little bit darker with some of the trees that I see off in the distance. And I'm going to use a vertical brush stroke here to get some separation between what's in the distance and what's in my painting. Okay, so this is a lot like what I did with the still life demo, in that I'm just starting with the black and then coming in with some gray, and by virtue of what I have not touched, I've activated the white areas of the painting. So I didn't have to paint those white for them to function. for them to carry the light at this point. So, you know, I'm going to add some more white into my light gray and start to come in with some texture in the tree. I just want to get a little bit in here for where the light is. I'm not trying to cover it completely at this point. But see, in doing this, I'm starting to get a little bit more texture, looking a little more like a tree, looking a little less like what would you call my tree that I did at the very start when I said don't do it this way? Anybody want to come up with a name for that tree?
Childish.
Childish. What else?
Atrocious.
What did it look like?
Stick with cotton candy on it.
Oh, cotton candy tree. That's good. See, I'm still using that really big brush, coming in and changing some of my values, getting the ground to pop a little bit more. I'm going to come up with an even lighter kind of gray. To get some color in the sky. And in doing this, I can kind of come in and... How many of you found that when you were doing the background in your still life, you were able to like reshape the object itself? Yes? No? Maybe? I was drinking iced tea at the time? Are you sure you're paying attention?
Yeah, I'll get on to it.
So I anointed Caleb my cameraman today, and Nick came and said, and bring him iced tea when he gets hot. So I like that idea too. All right. Bless you. Now see, I can start coming in with some stronger, not quite pure white, but close, to get some form on that tree. What has happened to throw a monkey wrench into my process right now?
Starting going by.
Excuse me?
People driving across the road.
Oh, I'm not worried about them.
The
but
clouds.
The clouds. And anytime you paint a landscape, you know, you're going to deal with the light changing, the sun moving. That's just part of the process. So, quick question. Does my tree have some volume to it now? Okay. You know, there's light and shadow. You can tell that the sun is coming from that direction. And this is a little challenging to do in black and white, I think. How many of you have done like charcoal drawings of the landscape? A couple of you have, okay. You know, here you're doing it with paint, but approach it like you would the charcoal. I think I need to get some black back on my brush. Want to kind of reinforce these shadows over here. One thing you want to try to do is put your brush strokes down with different directions when you can. You know, I can almost always, especially in a beginning painter or somebody's drawing, tell whether they're right-handed or left-handed. How do you think that is? If you're right-handed, all the brush strokes go this way. If you're left-handed, they're all going this way. So if you can really think about each brush stroke you're putting down in there and whether you're going this way or that way, and try to get as much variety as you can, you'll be better off. We talked about those cross contour lines in the studio. So look for those out in nature as well. Ooh, tough guy. Every time I hear somebody gunning their engine like that, I just think, ha ha, you're paying more at the gas pump. So, this is not my greatest landscape ever. It's not my work. But you get an idea as to how I'm trying to build some form, show the light direction. Get it working like that. What needs help? On my painting.
The ground?
What's that?
The ground?
Yeah, I think so. Where I was headed. Lost my one tree trunk, didn't I? One in the back. And I don't see a lot of light on the side of him, but I'm going to kind of push what I do see along the edge there, just to make him pop out a little bit more, clean up this one a little bit. Come with some white now and poke a couple holes in my tree, so to speak, you know, where you can almost see the sky coming through a little bit more than what I had. Look at how irregularly shaped the edge is, the contour. It's as far away from that lollipop tree as it could possibly be, right? Okay, so if we're ever painting outside as a group and I come up and look at your painting, the one thing you don't want to hear me say is, where are you looking? Okay, you know, think about that portrait of a tree idea as opposed to just, oh, I just got to get a generic tree slopped in here and be happy with that. And you see my brush strokes on the ground. If I come in and really sell that horizontal shape, That helps the space a lot. I've got to back up and see how this looks. It's not all together. Okay. What do you have questions? Comments?
Do you want us to use the bigger brush still?
Yeah, I want you to keep using a big brush. Okay? That will keep you from getting too picky with it. You know? How many leaves are on that group of trees out there? 1 billion. Can you possibly paint every one of them? Should you try? No. So same thing with blades of grass. You know, what's more important than how many blades of grass out there is what is that plane? What is the ground doing there? How is it moving? A couple more little blobs of light coming through here. Kind of makes that shadow look a little more related to the tree. So, you know, as was the case with your first painting, I did the demo, I did it quickly, I emphasized just the large simple shapes and getting light and shadow in there, and it was up to you whether you wanted to go in and blend a lot or add a lot of detail. At the start of the semester, I'm just interested in the large picture, the big picture. You know, can you get a portrait of that tree? Can it have volume, and can you show me light direction? If you can get all those things going on in your painting, you're in good shape. All right, what time is it? 2 o'clock. Anybody have any questions? You may pause.